It is a pleasure to be asked to lead worship for Crown Court again so soon, the third time since Christmas Day. Of course, the frequent invitations are because we're in a gap between ministers. We look forward to calling a minister to settle in this congregation, and the church will rightly ensure the new minister receives a stipend, and the congregation will doubtless put the manse in order for the minister's family. I am a retired minister now, but throughout my work I was supported and provided for. I ended up convener of the church's Maintenance of Ministry Committee. So, of course, I endorse what the Apostle Paul wrote in a few sentences before our reading this morning, where he says that the minister must be supported and provided for. But Paul himself couldn't help preaching the gospel, and he must have been used to working with canvas because he combined himself with some local tent makers and started off the church in Corinth without any financial support whatever. And he was pleased that that gave him a special freedom. Yes, he said in a complicated and subtle paragraph, he wasn't free to choose why to preach. He just had to. He was compelled to. How? In those days when what passed for a civilized society had many enslaved people, often occupying responsible positions, Paul explained that he was the slave of Jesus Christ and therefore the slave of all for Jesus' sake. He thus identified with slaves, and he had been born a Jew and he identified with Jews. He knew the freedom Christ brought, and he identified with the people who found themselves liberated from the religious ritual law. He also took great care in relations with the people he called the weak, who didn't feel themselves freed from those regulations. He could understand their attitude, though he didn't agree with it. Paul, we may say, accepted a multicultural society. He could enter into each different culture in order to promote the gospel of Jesus. So our reading led to the famous saying, I have become all things to all men. When you hear that phrase nowadays, it is often critical. It sounds like a description of a two-faced, slippery individual, a hypocrite, a chameleon, someone trying too hard to be accepted, or a plausible sales representative, an unreliable partner. All things to all men gives off a bad vibe in many conversations today. The key to it is integrity. We can't morph into different characters in each and every situation. We are who we are. And what we believe is going to count for something, we must be consistent. Paul the Apostle was consistent in putting Christ first. He was Christ's slave and a slave to everyone, or as we would say, at everybody's service. His stated motive for being all things to all men was so that by all possible means some might be saved. Paul didn't compromise, he empathized. You can enter into the experience of another if you get to know them, if you listen to them, if you value their experience and share what you feel you have in common with them. I became a member of this congregation by a strange route, and nothing is going to make me a Scot, but I feel that I am among friends here. Our cultures don't clash. The true understanding of all things to all men isn't far from a man's a man for all that. The true understanding, people are bothering about individuals, they're worth bothering about. We can go out of our way to meet them where they are. They will get to know soon enough what we are made of. They will, however flexible we are, they'll find something vital inside, something that makes us tick. You may be saying to yourself, well, I can't get out to meet anybody nowadays in this pandemic lockdown. True enough, our encounters are few, masked, distanced, and mostly limited to the business we're doing. Some people are quite isolated, and it's a favor to reach out to them. A phone call, a note, whatever you can do. But you are watching this on a screen, and maybe you do have opportunities to meet people on Zoom, Skype, FaceTime, meetings. I'm surprised how many new groups I've been to in these past 10 months, joining courses, webinars, talks, new faces in strange and different forms of encounter. It makes me wonder what they're making of me, these new online acquaintances. What am I to say about what makes me tick? Paul would tell them about Jesus. Jesus set Paul free and enslaved him. Do we find it difficult to introduce Jesus into a conversation in our culture? Yes, we mostly do find it difficult. Yet the other morning, I heard a member of a gospel singing group in a general interest program give her solo, "Oh, happy day when Jesus washed my sins away," and got applause for it. The message was delivered in the words which they heard, and they were heard by thousands who were watching that program. Quickly forgotten by many, maybe, but those who have ears, let them hear. We don't think that we can do likewise? Well, then, the difference belonging to Jesus Christ makes to you will come out in other ways. It will come through, but not if we're that kind of pliable person who gives a bad name to all things to all men. If Christians lower their standards, join in dishonorable talk, gossip, accept bending the rules, cruel humor, that is to morph too much and lose oneself in futility. When a man, a woman, most modern translations make it clear that females are included. When a man, a woman shows their mettle, indicates the point beyond which they will not go, or better, shows by generosity the lengths to which they will go, who our master is will be disclosed. Guard against adapting too comfortably to the norms of our society, compromising too much with mammon and mammon's values, or else no one will perceive the Christian in the nice fellow. Paul also says at the beginning of his 12th chapter to the Romans, "Do not conform any longer to the pattern of this world, but be transformed by the renewing of your mind. Then you will be able to test and approve what God's will is, his good, pleasing, and perfect will." That sets a limit to suiting ourselves to our company. It is often difficult to be sure of the right line to take in particular company. We hesitate, as I say, to mention Jesus Christ as the source of our motivation. And sometimes we may lose faith in our judgment. To be on good terms, we may go along with all the attitudes expressed by an acquaintance. And where are we going to draw the line? We need to revert to the fount of wisdom, have our mind renewed by our awareness of God's mercy, think out what is God's will, pleasing and perfect, and what it is for us in that place and that time. Paul's motive in becoming all things for all men was that he might possibly save some. All possible means. He had a missionary motive. He cared about people and their distance from God. Like Jesus, he cared about people devoured by their demons. Like Isaiah, he wanted to wake up the people of God, reminding them of God's power, reality, and ability to renew our drooping selves and lift us up on eagle's wings. May it be so for you.